Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
Authorities are now assessing the burning landfill in Navotas, which forced thousands of residents to evacuate.
Majority of Filipinos back impeachment trial for Vice President Sara Duterte as shown in the latest survey of Okta.
A slight increase in transmission charges is set to reflect in upcoming electricity bills.
Transport groups are now holding the second day of their strike, calling for government action over rising fuel prices.
First in the news, toxic smoke from a burning landfill in Navotas is now spreading beyond Metro Manila, forcing thousands of residents to evacuate. Authorities are now on the ground to assess the situation. We go live to Mobile Journal Arles de los Santos for the latest. Arles, kamusta na ang inspection dyan?
Diego at Angela, ilang minuto pa lamang mula nang umalis tayo doon mismo sa Navotas City Sanitary Landfill na ngayon nga ay nasa 80% na o humigit kumulang 30 hektarya na yung nasusunog na bahagi nito. Bunsod yan ng methane combustion na nagsimula noong Biyernes itong nakaraang linggo. Yung kapal nga ng mga basura doon ay nasa 16 meters. Kaya naman nananatiling malaking pagsubok para sa Navotas LGU yung pag-apula sa sunog nito. At actually, Angela at Diego, yung tubig nga raw ay tila hindi na sapat para maapula na ito. Kinakailangan na raw ay yung paggamit nga ng putik at ng lupa para masuppress na yung oxygen sa ilalim na nagdudulot naman ng paglaki at pagpapatuloy nga ng sunog. Dati, nitong mga nakarang araw ay nasa 60% lamang yung sunog yung nasusunog na bahagi nito. Pero ngayon nasa 80% na dahilan para nga bisitahin na ito personal ni DPWH Secretary Vince Dizon dahil humingi ng tulong na mismo yung local government ng Navotas City para magbigay ng mga engineering related equipment, bigay na lamang ng bulldozer, dredger at ng backhoe para upayin yung mga lupa doon at ipanambak doon nga sa sanitary landfill na actually hindi na ito operational mula pa noong 2025.
Arles, ano ba yung official cause of fire nito? Kasi ang daming lumalabas na balita.
Sa ngayon, Diego, ay meron pa rin apoy. Ang mahirap dito ay dahil nagkaroon nga ng methane combustion nanggaling sa ilalim ng lupa, yung mga gas na-expose sa init and then lumaki, cost, and then nasunog yung mga nakikitago na bahagi and then pumalat na. Sa ngayon ay meron pa rin apoy at nasa ika-6 na araw yung Bureau of Fire Protection at yung Coast Guard at yung Navotas City LGU at yung Bubando, Bulacan para nga magtulong-tulungan na maapula ito.
Well, you are wearing your mask right now. Ibig sabihin, hindi pa rin okay ang air quality dyan sa Navotas?
Yes, Angela. Actually, sa air quality index monitoring na inilabas ng Navotas City LGU kahapon, nasa normal naman yung air quality dito. Pero pinapaalalahanan nila yung mga karating nilang bayan o yung mga tributaryo nating tinatawag, lalo na yung mga sensitibong sektor, kagaya na lamang ng may mga sakit at nakatatanda na magsuot ng face mask. Kasi, Angela, nakita natin kahit bago pa tayo pumasok dito na talagang yung usok ay malaki. At actually, umaabot nga ito doon sa Ubando, Bulacan dahilan upang mag-evacuate yung nasa 3,000 mga pamilya. At patuloy naman na minomonitor yung air quality index pero mataas kasi yung risk ng respiratory illnesses kung patuloy nga na malalanghap ito. And sa experience natin, doon mismo sa sanitary landfill kanina, mausok pa din at napasusulasok, mabaho yung amoy. Pagpasok pa lang, medyo parang may amoy-ammonia na, sakit sa ilong. Kaya naman understandable kung patuloy ang pagpapaalala ng lokal na pamahalaan na mag-mask up ang mga residenteng kalapit dito.
Arles, ano yung mga challenges ngayon ng mga firefighters with regards to this? And alam ko kasi this is a methane-induced fire. Dapat ma-resolve daw agad ang isang methane-induced fire kasi it could cause more explosions kung hindi daw ma-settle to. So ano yung timeline nila?
Sa ngayon, Diego, tinanong din natin yan kay Secretary... Wait lang, kasi bababa na tayo ng bangka. Tinanong din natin yan mismo kay Secretary Vince Dizon. Hindi pa raw sila makakapagbigay ng definite timeline kung kailan nga talaga agad itong maaapula. Pero patungkol doon, Diego, sa mga hamon na kinaharap, isa dito yung low tide. Kasi kagaya nito ngayon, hindi pa makadaong yung isang dredger dahil mataas pa daw, mababa pa raw yung tubig, no? Kaya baka later on, mga alas 11 onwards, baka bumaba na raw yung tubig, tumaas na daw yung tubig at makapasok na nga yung dredger, no? Actually, yung hamon din, yung mapagdadaungan nga ng mga ito, no? At kinakailangan na nga yung pagtabo ng lupa doon. Actually, pati yung mga private sector and companies na nandito sa area ay tutulong na rin.
So ano na yung pinaka-update doon sa plano ng LGU ng Navotas pagdating doon sa pagpapanagot, no, sa mga landfill operator dyan? Kasi a few days ago, if I'm not mistaken, sabi nila tinitignan nila na mag-impose ng penalty. But ano nang update tungkol doon, Arles?
Ngayong alas 11 ng umaga, Angela, no, ay magkakaroon ng meeting yung lokal na pamahalaan ng Navotas para nga masigurado na masilip yung posible na irregularidad at paglabag ng sanitary company, no, na dati na nakakuha ng permit dito para magsagawa yung dredging nga, no, yung pag-operate nga, no, ng sanitary landfill. Pero ayon kasi sa kanila lipat na daw sa lokal na pamahalaan, no. Pero ayon kay Navotas City Mayor Chanco, actually pinag-aagawan nga raw itong lupa na ito, no. Kaya medyo in a way conflicted pa din kung sino na nga pa talaga yung mga ngalaga dito. Pero dapat kasi, Angela, kapag ang isang sanitary landfill ay hindi nagagamitin o magtitigil operasyon, na kailangan magkaroon ng rehabilitation dito para masigurado na magamit uli yung lugar. At syempre, isa sa mga paraan dyan, either pwedeng gawing park, pwedeng taniman ng puno para magamit ng publiko, dahan-dahan, and then probably, no, later on ay makapagtayo ng mga gusali na pwede namang magamit para sa ekonomiya ng lungsod na nakasasakop dito.
Well, kamusta naman yung mga residente? Sabi mo kanina ang ilan dito dun sa mga affected ay nailipat, no, sa mga evacuation area. Saan yun? Kumusta sila? And may mga nakausap ka ba? Meron ba sila mga plano na maghabla dito sa mga land operators na to dahil this causing too much trouble sa kanilang lugar?
Sa ngayon, Angela, hindi pa tayo nagkakaroon ng pagkakataon na makapanayam yung mga residente, no? Pero actually, itong bahagi kung nasan tayo ngayon, ito ay boundary lamang, no, ng Navotas, ng Malabon, and then yung Obando, Bulacan, no, na kung saan mas apektado nga yung mga residente ng Obando, Bulacan dahil kung tutuusin, yung hangin ay papunta sa kabila, no, which is sa Obando, sa Bulacan nga, no. Kaya kasama sa nag-inspection dito yung kanilang mayor para nga masigurado pa din at masiguro yung kapakanan ng kanilang mga residente. Ko-confirm natin kung may mga kaso nga o ihahabla din nila itong kumpanya na dating nangangalaga ng sanitary company, pero nakadepende pa rin yan syempre sa mga legal na mga basihan na patungkol nga dito sa operasyon ng landfill na ito.
When was the last time na bumisita naman dyan ang DENR? No? Kasi sila din ay eyeing, no, to file charges against the operator para nga mapanagot ito dito sa pinsalang dulot ng kanilang landfill.
Actually, kanina, Angela, may kasama tayo mula sa DENR and then kahapon, if we get it right, nagkaroon din sila ng press conference and assessment dito sa area na papunta naman doon sa sanitary landfill na yon, no, na actually malaki, Angela, malaki yung land area noon dahil nasa 43 hectares yung sanitary landfill na iyon, no, and nasa 30 hectares na daw noon ngayon yung may apoy, no. Kaya yung DNR ay syempre nababahala din, no. And syempre yung titignan din nila yung ECC, yung environmental compliance na tinatawag, kung meron nga bang paglabag ito na baka makasuhan din talaga eventually, no. But we need to confirm yung kalalabasan ng kanilang investigasyon.
Arles, a few days ago, no, several cities sa Metro Manila naglabas ng mga kanya-kanyang report on yung air quality index. Quezon City, Manila, na nag-i-increase ang hazard level ng per city. Is this also right now being affected by the yung Navotas landfill burn?
We will confirm, Diego, pero parang may nakita natin na may connection nga. Kasi kanina doon, yung hangin talaga sinusway. Actually, in a way, parang outside Navotas nga at Malabon yung area na yon. Parang mas more on sa Obando, Bulacan talaga dito, no? And then, sabi ni Secretary Vince Dizon, may mga ulat din daw na actually umaabot pa doon sa Bataan, no? Kaya talagang malaki, hindi biro yung usok at syempre yung panganib na posibleng ang bitbit nitong sunog na ito.
Arles, kasi di ba sabi mo yung experience is not only amoy but pati sa mata, masakit. Kasi I understand this is a methane burn. So with that in mind, are they also going to check yung mga waterways natin? Kasi kung may methane yan, affected ang waterways.
Yes, Diego, kasama yan sa kanilang titignan at i-check. Pero kanina parang even hindi naman wala namang sunog, parang in a way hindi ganoon kalinisan yung tubig dito. May ilang mga bangka na dumadaong at nangingisda doon sa mga bahagi ng Manila de Bay. Pero yung water quality, particular doon sa landfill, ay kailangan pa ring suriin. At syempre, yung part kasi dapat yung Diego pa din noong rehabilitation ng compliance noong sanitary landfill na umabandona na noong nakaraang taon pa.
Well, pakibigyan mo kami ng konteksto, Arles, doon sa kung saan-saang mga lugar nanggagaling yung mga basura dyan sa landfill. At ngayon na mayroong problema dyan, at possible closure ng landfill na yan, papaano ang kumbaga pagtatapon ng basura ngayon dun sa mga areas na yan ang ginagawang tapunan ng basura?
Well, Angela, yung mga local government unit natin, may kanya-kanya namang kontrata yan sa mga sanitary companies. Actually, malaking bahagdan nga sa Metro Manila, yung Lionel, yung ginagamit nila. Pero dito, hindi tayo nakakakita ng mga trucks na meron kasi nag-stop na ito noong 2025 pa. We will confirm kung yung mga basura na dating tinatapon dito ay inilipat na. Kasi if we get it right, meron din mga landfill doon sa Rodriguez, sa Rizal na naging issue din at may mga problema rin. And yung depende naman kung ano bang mga lugar yung tinatapon, parang Greater Manila din yung nakikita natin na mga mga nagtatapon dito noon. At nakita na kanina, actually halos mapulbos na yung ilang mga basura doon. Kaya kapag ka nag-i-step, kanina nga yung sapatos natin dito, kulay itim. Paglabas natin, medyo off-white na siya dahil napakakapal talaga ng alikabok doon.
And of course, finally, mabilis na lamang, paano yung mga tulong na ibinibigay dyan sa residente na affected? Pagkain, medical assistance, Arles?
Yung Navotas City LGU, Angela, ay nakapagbigay na ng nasa 3,000 sako ng mga bigas para doon sa 3,000 mga pamilya na apektado nga nitong usok na ngayon ay nasa evacuation center. Patuloy na sisilipin at aalamin ng Navotas LGU, gayon din ng Obando, Bulacan, at yung mga posibleng karatig na mga lugar nito, kung ano pa nga ba yung mga aksyon na kanilang maaaring gawin dahil sa ngayon hamon pa din talaga yung pag-apula ng sunog at hindi ito nagtatapos sa apoy na nandoon sa landfill kundi pati doon sa usok na maaaring malanghap. Kaya paalala pa rin ng mga otoridad, kagaya po ng aking ginagawa ngayon, magsuot ng face mask kung kinakailangan, lalo pa kung bahagi kayo ng sensitibong sektor, yung mga nakatatanda natin at yung mga person with disability para nga po hindi magkaroon ng anumang respiratory problems. Angela at Diego.
All right, thank you for that. Mobile Journal, Arles de los Santos.
House lawmakers are calling on the government to consider the welfare of all Filipinos amid talks on suspending excise taxes on petroleum products. During a joint hearing of the House Legislative Energy Action and Development or LEAD Committee, Finance Undersecretary Carlo Adriano said removing excise taxes on fuel would mostly benefit the rich. He said that it is also the reason why the administration prioritized suspending the excise tax on LPG and kerosene. Meanwhile, Cagayan de Oro Representative Rufus Rodriguez urged a stronger action to address rising fuel prices, citing policies in other ASEAN countries such as price controls, subsidies, and fuel tax cuts.
Yung sinasabi na rich lang ang magikinabang, we are now trying to classify people in this country as rich, middle, and poor. No, we have to help everyone. I appeal to everyone, and I appeal to our president to really go into what is needed. These countries that have put this price caps, subsidy, have done this, Mr. Chairman, 3 weeks ago.
Batangas 1st District Representative Leandro Leviste also backed the suspension or reduction of the value-added tax.
Maling-mali ang analysis ng DOF na ang mayayaman at middle class lang ang makikinabang dito. Lahat po ay makikinabang. At sabi nga ng iba, anong masama kung ang middle class ay makikinabang? Sila naman ay nagbabayad ng mas malaki ring buwis, di ba? Lalo na sa kanilang mga income taxes.
And joining us now is Batangas 1st District Representative Leandro Leviste. Good morning, Congressman. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, Kong. Well, even before this crisis happened, no, mausap-usapan na yung dami ng layer ng taxes meron tayo sa Pilipinas. And there have been discussions of either reducing the layers, and some are complaining na pag ginawa mo daw ito, mababawasan ng income ang Pilipinas. But there's also a study that says if you do this, it trickles down to all the classes and more spending power. Now, what is your official stance on the VAT on taxes on goods?
The VAT is regressive because all Filipinos pay it, including the poorest of the poor, who pay a larger percent of their income on the VAT than others. But the Constitution says that taxation should be progressive, meaning dapat mas mataas ang porsyento na binabayad ng mga mayayaman kaysa sa mga mahihirap. Kaya as much as possible, dapat nating ibaba ang VAT para din makatulong sa ating mga kababayan na mas mababa ang kita at para din palaguin ang ating ekonomiya.
And you have been vocal about this recently, but kamusta na po ang ng mga colleagues nyo sa Congress? Are they receptive to the idea?
The good news is every congressman I talk to is in favor of lowering the VAT. So when it is put to a vote, Congress will lower the VAT. The problem is we are told that the cabinet is blocking the agenda of the vote on the VAT. And that should not be, because there should be a separation of powers. Congressmen are elected directly and not like cabinet members who are just appointees. And I hope that when Congress resumes session on May 4, we will schedule a vote on the lowering of the VAT.
And in one of your interviews, you said that it was the DOF Secretary, Ralph Recto, who's the one blocking this proposal. Do you have proof on that? And he also said in one of his interview to stop blaming the government and just do your job. What is your reaction on that?
First of all, the position paper opposing the reduction in the VAT was signed by Secretary Recto. And Secretary Recto has made many public statements opposing the lowering of the VAT. So there's no question that they're against it. The question lang is, why is Congress not scheduling the vote? And technically, the committee should not be listening to the recommendation if the members want to schedule the vote. But I was told by the chairman of the committee that they cannot schedule the vote because the cabinet is against it. And I think that it is our job to exert all means to set the agenda in line with what the people want. That's why I will continue to push for the setting of this agenda. And other members of Congress, thankfully, are also on board and have also, in yesterday's committee hearing, expressed that the cabinet is against lowering the VAT, but we should not let that hold us hostage, and that they even changed their opinion on lowering the excise tax because the cabinet recommended lowering the excise tax in March and now is not exercising the power.
Right.
And Congress has the power of setting the taxes, and we should not be at the mercy of the changing opinions of the cabinet.
Right, but let me correct myself earlier. But Secretary Ralph Recto said no person can block Congress from enacting a law. So stop blaming others and just do your job. That's his statement. But of course, Congressman Miro said, despite whatever the executive or judiciary might say, we will make the decisions based on the mandate that is given to us individually by our respective district and sectors that we represent. So do you believe, Congressman Miro's statement that eventually, no, wala naman talagang magkakaroon, hindi po pwede, no, realistically na may magsabi sa inyo kung ano yung dapat gawin?
And the bottom line is there should be a vote in the week of May 4. And if there's no vote, then someone needs to take responsibility for why there's no vote. Logically, it's either the House leadership, led by the Speaker and the Majority Leader, or the committee chair, or it is the executive, led by the President, or the Cabinet, which is led by the Executive Secretary. And we can't just accept that a bill that many are calling for is not being put to a vote without identifying and holding accountable the person who is blocking the bill.
Congressman, I'd like to ask also about yung mga options na meron sa Congress regarding excise tax because madaming growing dissatisfaction not only among the middle class but also against with the lower classes, saying na how could they say na the excise tax only benefits, removing it benefits the rich when the diesel transportation is owned by the lower class who work for the jeepneys.
That's true. And there's no perfect way to lower a tax that will only benefit the poor, but the rich and the middle class pay more taxes, and the fact that the VAT is applied equally to the rich and the poor in itself is wrong. So that's why lowering the VAT is actually good for the poor more than it is good for the rich, because they pay a larger percent of their income on the VAT. Whereas kung bawasan mo naman ang VAT na binabayad ng mga mayayaman o middle class, you don't have that much lost revenue relative to the benefit it gives to the poor.
So if Malacanang, Congressman, just to add, if Malacanang does not suspend at least the excise taxes for fuel products, do we see after all of this crisis a review by Congress on the entire tax system and also the excise taxes on fuel products?
I think so. That's a good opportunity to review the general tax policy of the country. But I think there's more political support for temporary suspensions. But I am personally in favor of pushing for a wealth tax targeting real properties. Because when you're having a wealth tax, then you can address the concern people are saying that this change in the taxes will be beneficial also to the rich. Then you can just have a tax targeting the rich to address that. But then if you have a wealth tax on all assets, a lot of rich people can hide their assets. But if you target real properties, then you actually address the practical issue of having a wealth tax, because you can't hide real properties.
Right.
That's right.
But one of the concerns also pag sinasabi nila na if we're going to reduce VAT or suspend excise tax, the government is set to lose billions of pesos from the revenue that we could get from that. What is your take on that? Saan kukunin yung mawawalang revenue, 100 plus billions?
May tatlong pwedeng pagkunan. Number one, the government can lower spending. There's 6.7 trillion in the 2026 budget. And the Department of Budget and Management itself said that there's 150 billion of non-essential MOOE. But they're not even cutting the non-essential MOOE. We're not doing austerity measures. And there's even a lot more other things that can be cut, including the 22.9 billion ASEAN budget and the 2.46 billion communications budget of the President's office, and the 11.6 billion in confidential funds. You can easily come up with the 200 plus billion pesos needed to fund the suspension of these taxes, and the executive needs to justify why it's more important to have budgets for these non-essential expenses instead of giving tax relief to ordinary consumers. Number two, we can also increase our collections, especially given that there is admittedly by the government hundreds of billions of pesos a year lost to tax evasion, including smuggling in the Bureau of Customs.
Yeah.
And I believe that people would agree it's very hard to have that much smuggling if there's no high-level people in government that are protecting the smugglers. So I think Congress should have inquiries on smuggling that's happening in the Bureau of Customs as a way to raise more revenue in light of our current crisis. And lastly, I mentioned earlier, possible wealth tax. And having new taxes that are more progressive is the most direct way to offset lower revenues from the lower VAT.
Well, Kong, it's good that you mention yung issue nga ng collection, ano? Kasi sabi nga nila, ang Pilipinas ay isa sa mga may mataas na VAT rates in ASEAN. Pero yung collection efficiency natin is only around 35 to 40%. So, indicating there are leakages on that area. But sabi nga nila, reducing the rate without fixing the system would risk revenue loss as well. So, what can we do on that part?
Actually, madaling-madali po na itaas ang collection. Kasi alam naman nating lahat na kaya lang malaki ang nawawala sa smuggling dahil may mga protector ang mga smugglers. So, just like we reduced corruption in the DPWH with the flood control investigations, we can also reduce revenue losses by launching investigations on smuggling in the Bureau of Customs.
Well, lastly, sabi nyo nga po kung sa May 4 walang botohan na mangyayari, ano po yung gagawin po ninyo? And kasi if I can remember it correctly, may mga kasama po kayong mga taga Batangas also supporting your bill.
Actually, I'm going to Batangas today to consult our constituents on the next steps because there's a few thousand who have come to Manila to represent the millions still in the provinces. And we believe that if the public can speak out more vocally about this, then our officials have no choice but to listen to the call of the people.
Alright, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. Batangas 1st District Representative Leandro Leviste. Good morning.
Thank you.
Now, a majority of Filipinos believe Vice President Sara Duterte should face an impeachment trial to answer the allegations against her. That is based on the latest survey conducted by Octa Research. When asked if Duterte should answer the allegations against her before an impeachment court, 69% of respondents said yes, while 28% said no. Support was highest in the Visayas at 83%, followed by the National Capital Region at 81%. In an interview with Storycon, Octa President Ranjit Rai said many Filipinos see an impeachment trial as a means of accountability and due process.
But what does this really mean for the political landscape and the case moving forward? Joining us now is political analyst and Octa Research Fellow, Professor Ranjit Rai, to break this down. Prof, thank you for joining us.
Nice to see
Yes,
you.
hi. Thank you. Long time no see.
Yes.
I know. So much is happening, and that's why it's glad that you're here, Prof. It says 69% no ang support for the impeachment. But is it tantamount to saying that they all want to see a guilty verdict, or it's just merely saying let's just go through the process, or we're not sure whether she's guilty or not?
That's the second one. Yeah, it's a proper interpretation of it. And we have actually sub-probes. No? They're commissioned, but they're sub-probes attached to this question. And what seems to be clear is that people, because of the framing of the question, people appreciate it differently. Those who are associated with, let's say, who have a political preference that says they're pro-Duterte, they see the trial as something, as a mechanism for due process, a way to clear her name. So for those who are not, it's a mechanism for accountability. And so there are different people appreciate the question differently, but on the whole, all of them see the trial as acceptable and something that has to be moved forward.
Well, does this mean or does this reflect trust in the impeachment process based on that survey, or dissatisfaction also dun sa mga nangyayari ngayon?
Yeah, well, I think it's basically trust in that a process that is mandated by the Constitution should move forward. So to emphasize the statement earlier, no, respondents are saying yes to a hearing without saying yes to a conviction or removal. So these are two fundamental, fundamentally different positions. The conviction. Removal is not part of the findings of the report. What they're basically saying is yes to a hearing, majority of of Filipinos are seeking. When you look at on the whole, the implication. People looking at the hearings or the trial, I should say, as a mechanism for due process, as well as a mechanism for accountability. So public wants this issue to be resolved.
Yes, kasi ang daming issue. But specifically looking at the Visayas regions and the NCR, no, the numbers are quite high as expected. But what does this indicate politically?
It indicates that the country is, just for background, when you look at this question, we ran this question last year in the first quarter of 2025, and just before the impeachment was thrown out, by the Supreme Court, it came out with 78%. We came out with 78%. So it was higher then, Now it's it's much lower as at 69, and maybe the timing of the survey also was conducted March 19 to 25, no. And what it simply says is that you have another finding of the study is that 87% of our kababayans know of the impeachment process. They don't know the details, they don't know the actual cases, but they do know that a process it has proceeded, no? And it shows that the public is informed at a basic level, and it shows that they see the concept of a trial as something that should be undertaken, and that in their view, the vice president should engage in, largely for her to answer allegations against her, and for her supporters to use as a platform to clear her name.
Which is interesting, no, Prof, because yung mga diehard supporters naman ng Duterte faction see the Committee on Justice as an enemy on what's happening to them. But when you're talking about these people who want to go to the process, even Duterte supporters, I would surmise they're not the diehard supporters. They're just merely the regular ones.
No, they are the. Well, first of all, your statement has no date. There's no data to back your statement.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's an opinion. But the data that we're showing is that actually asked that the everyday Duterte supporters how they understood or why they said yes to the question. And so we have that separate study, and basically their own appreciation of the question was that they believe first that there's a trial, and their impression most likely of a trial is it's something that's fair, impartial, and used as a platform. So they believe that she should answer the allegations to clear her name, and I think that's an important sense or appreciation of those who said yes to this. That they don't believe that a lot of them actually don't believe that this is that a lot of them actually believe that it is politically motivated, and that she can clear her name. In fact, that she should clear her name, and that for them, that's their own view of the trial. Not all of them, by the way, want the trial, but a number of them do. And when we put these numbers together with those who want the trial and see it as a mechanism for accountability or pananagutan in Filipino, we came up with that number, 69%.
Yun, oo. I was looking at your survey nga po, Prof. Sa bailiwick nila sa Mindanao, 61% support nga itong impeachment, while 38% yung opposing the impeachment trial. Of course, highest in Mindanao, impeachment trial process, highest in Mindanao. Pero malaki din yun, yung 38%.
Highest in Visayas.
So, malaki-laking porsyento din yun, no?
Yeah, but it's 61% in Mindanao, and again, I described the appreciation. Largely, those who said yes understood that the trial would actually clear her name.
But, okay, this survey came before Madriaga's appearance yesterday, diba? So do you think this would also affect kung gagawa ko ulit kayo ng survey, same questions, diba? Same yung mga respondents.
May impact
may impact ba yung statement niya, if ever?
Yeah, I think so. But maybe by June, we'll be asking a different question. Kasi whether we like it or not, this trial will go forward because it's a constitutional mandate. We just wanted to see the initial understanding, just to run another survey, the question that we ran at the same time last year, to see if there were changes. And to answer your question, yes, definitely. As the hearings move from allegation to evidence, perceptions will change. And my sense is if both sides engage the process, there'll be some clarity, but the Vice President has chosen not to take part in the hearings, she may, of course, obviously respond in social media, outside, and I think that's what they're doing now. The more people are informed, or in this case, the less they're also misinformed, I think the better they'll be able to provide a judgment as to what's happening. The legal political process is ongoing. We don't know if it will reach the trial stage. But what's clear is that Filipinos want a trial to continue.
Right.
Regarding that, no, it's good you mentioned that, well, a majority of Filipinos want to go through this process for clarity. And the Vice President's team continues to challenge this process and saying it's not, it should not happen because it's against the Constitution. So how would this then impact yung numbers ni VP Sara if she does not attempt to address yung allegations?
Well, if this is speculation, but by and large, when you look at the data on, the dips in her trust and approval ratings, historically, it's only during those times when there are significant, investigations against her. And the first time it happened, and she's always had very, above majority numbers, very good numbers for trust and approval. The only time they dipped was and significant was when they started investigating her in Congress, in the House of Representatives in particular, with regards to confidential and intelligence funds. No, that was like 2 years ago. Yeah, they started dipping then, but after the hearings, they went up again. So we cannot expect that, given the yesterday's hearings were, I would say, they're very controversial and very serious evidence were showed yesterday. How true they are, we will see, in the trial. But there's serious allegations and serious evidence has been shown yesterday. And we only think, what we think is that her numbers are going to take a hit. Where trust and approval, or even the preference for her in 2028, which, by the way, is has slightly gone down over the last 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
Okay. So kailan yung next survey, and what will be the focus on that survey? Citing na medyo bumaba, nakita she still enjoys, 'di ba, yung mataas na trust rating, pero nakita nyo may pagbaba.
Yeah, may pagbaba, but it's not really pagbaba. No? I'm talking about really the preference. Yung preference 2020, yun talaga bumaba. Pero it's not, it's not alarming. She's still in the lead as far as that preference survey is concerned, which is, by the way, preliminary. It's not predictive. It's still long way to 2020. But her trust and approval ratings are relatively stable. There's a dip now. We're coming up with that report on Monday. We're seeing a dip in her numbers. It's possible these are the effects of the trial, or the impeachment process. Remember, our survey data was survey fieldwork was March 19 to 25. So wala pa yung Madriaga, wala pa to. So to answer your question, mukhang this is really bad for her. If she's not able to respond.
Abangan namin yung susunod po ninyong survey. For the meantime, maraming salamat
Which is in June. Which is in June.
June.
Okay.
Sige, abangan po namin yan. Maraming salamat po muli sa inyong oras. Good to have you always on the show, political analyst and Octa Research Fellow, Professor Ranjit Rai. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. It's day 2 of the transport strike led by Manibela, with some routes still affected and commuters feeling the impact. We go live now to our mobile journal, Francis Rivera, for the latest in Manila. Francis, kumusta dyan?
Morning, Angela and Jeko. Ngayon, nagpapatuloy yung pangangalampag ng grupong Manibela dito sa Maynila. At as of now, ito yung sitwasyon nila ngayon. Ay ayon kay Manibela Chairman Mar Balbuena, nasa 80% yung kasama nila ngayon na nagkilos protesta mula sa iba't ibang lugar. At ayon niya sa kanila, ayon sa kanya, maya-maya lamang daw ay may mga darating pang mga tsuper na nakatigil pasada ngayong araw na dito magtitipon-tipon sa kanilang site dito sa may Nagtahan, Maynila. At ayon kay Manibela Chairman, Marpal Buena, yung iba raw na bumabiyahe ngayon no sa kabila ng tigil pasada talagang meron daw pananakot mula sa LTFRB na sila ay maaaring tanggalan ng prangkisa. Kaya yung iba talagang napipilitan daw na bumiyahe sa kabila nga ng panawagan nila na magtigil pasada muna.
Oo.
Angela, Diego?
Oo. Tomorrow yung last day ng kanilang tigil pasada. After that, ano yung plano ng Manibela? Yung mga miyembro ba nito ay interesado sumali doon sa service contracting program ng LTFRB?
Yes, Angela. Actually, mariin na ginigiit ni Manibela Chairman Marpal Buena na pinag-iisipan nila itong sumali dito, no? Pero kasi ang point of view nila parang nagkakalokohan na nga lang daw dito, no? Parang band-aid solution na lang kumbaga yung nakikita nilang ginagawa ng gobyerno para doon sa mga tsuper, no? Lalo na dito sa ginagawa ngayon, no? Simula kahapon nag-roll out na rin kasi yung service contracting program, baka daw hindi raw magiging pantay yan para doon sa mga tsuper na baka hindi makasali yung iba at yung iba naman talagang buenas dahil makakasama rito, pero yung kalahati daw doon hindi. So magiging limitado lang daw yung makakasama rito. Bukod doon, yun yung ginigit nila na baka pag-isipan pa nila kung tutuloy or sasama pa or makikiisa sila para dito sa programa ng gobyerno.
Francis, isa sa panawagan nila yung sa pagsususpend ng excise tax and or yung VAT no, sa fuel prices. Kung hindi ito gawin ng gobyerno at nag-stick sila sa kerosene at LPG, ano plano ngayon ng grupo nila?
Diego, alam mo, medyo masamang araw yung loob nila dito dahil yung araw-araw na ginagamit o kinukonsumo ng mga tsuper na crudo or diesel, yung pa yung hindi na tapyasa ng excise tax, kaya medyo sumama ang loob nila dito. Kaya nga ay magtutuloy-tuloy daw kung sakaling hindi raw talaga matanggal yung VAT and excise tax dito sa mga produkto ng petrolyo, talaga magtutuloy-tuloy yung gagawin nilang kilos protesta at magtutuloy-tuloy din yung ginagawa nilang tigil pasada. No? At kanina nga natanong po si Manibela Chairman Marpal Buena, no? Kung magtutuloy-tuloy kayo ng tigil pasada, paano na kayo kikita? Yun nga sabi nila, no? Sabi niya, yung mga super niya nga daw, halos wala nang makain, wala na ring makinikita sa araw-araw. Kaya ang solusyon nila kahit pa paano, kung magkakaroon man ng tuloy-tuloy na tigil pasada, at least meron naman daw silang naipon sa organisasyon nila at yun yung parang binabudget nila para doon sa mga miyembro ng Manibela sa ngayon. So as of now, yun yung nakikita nilang solusyon, no? Kapag hindi natanggal yung excise tax at magtuloy-tuloy pa yung pagsipa ng presyo ng mga produktong petrolyo, baka talagang magtigil pasada o yung iba naman daw, talagang kuminto na sa pamamasada.
Alright, maraming salamat sa iyong oras, Mobile Journal, Francis Rivera. Power rates are moving again this April with a slight increase in transmission charges expected to reflect in consumers' electricity bills. Mobile Journal Ray Vicente has the details.
Consumers may see a slight increase in transmission rates reflected in their April 2026 electricity bill. During the press conference on Wednesday, April 15, the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines announced that the overall transmission rate for March, which should be billed by electric cooperatives this April, climbed by 4.26% to 1.7526 pesos per kilowatt hour. This is slightly higher from the 1.6810 pesos per kilowatt hour in February.
Compared to the previous beginning month, the overall average transmission rates for March 2026 billing period in peso per kilowatt hour equivalent has increased by 0.0716 pesos per kilowatt hour or 4.26%. This month's transmission billing rate is 0.7022 pesos per kilowatt hour, while the AS rate is 0.85
However, NGCP clarified that increase in transmission rate is not due to rising fuel prices. They echoed that the tension in Middle East war would have no spillover effect on electricity transmission charges.
Walang direct impact for transmission services in respect of the challenges posed by the conflict in the Middle East. We are like an ordinary consumer because our vehicles run on fuel. Pero in terms of transmission services, directly, hindi naman fuel dependent yan. So you may see an adjustment, perhaps dun sa ancillary services portion, but that's a pass-through charge, and makakapagsagot siguro kung any movement that may have an impact on the ancillary services. It will be the generators or the DOE.
The rise is mainly due to higher ancillary service, which rates increased from 0.8 to 75 pesos per kilowatt hour in February to 0.8516 pesos per kilowatt hour in March. Meanwhile, NGCP spokesperson assured there will be no red nor yellow alert for the power supply this summer season.
Kung patuloy itong pagsunod ng ating mga power industry players sa nakatakdang schedule ng maintenance shutdown, base sa nakikita ng NGCP, wala tayong dapat manambahan ngayong darating na tag-init. Not even that.
Kapatid Ray Vicente, Week or One News.
And with us now is Power for People Coalition convener Jerry Arances. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Diego and Angela, and thanks for inviting us.
All right, ano po reaction natin itong slight increase sa transmission rates during the crisis pa?
Ito po yung reflective of how the whole power sector, including yung transmission services, generation, and of course impacts the distribution charges as well, ng over reliant on imported fossil fuel.
That's right.
And itong slight adjustment ng NGCP pertains to mainly the ancillary services. At pag tinignan niyo yung ancillary services na ginawang 100% na kailangan bayaran, ERC decision yan in the past years, ay karamihan dyan mga diesel power plants. And curious ako na merong mga coal plants na naging ancillary services din. And the only reason why hindi ganun kalaki yung increase was really because madami sa mga ancillary services din ay mga renewable energy. Kasi renewable energy is not kumbaga reliant on fossil fuel importation. No? So sila yung nagsastabilize. Kaya hindi mo makikita sa NGCP yung mataas na increase. Mas makikita natin yan doon sa generation charge mismo. Yun yung pinaka nagaganap na yun.
Well, of course, ang rebuttal nila dyan would always say na dahil sa taas ng fuel cost natin, wala silang choice to increase yung mga transmission rates nila in this coming bill for to cover operational costs. Your thoughts on that?
Ito yung matagal na nating sinasabi sa pamahalaan, including sa ERC, sa Department of Energy mismo, including actually we have a petition before to the President, notwithstanding all the corruption issues within the power sector, no? Yung mismong over-reliance and still pagpo-promote ng fossil fuel dependency. And there's this proposal from DepDev ngayon na in times of a crisis na mas mag-rely pa sa coal at sa fossil fuel importation. Kasi coal is imported na biniburn natin. Around roughly 80% of the coal that we actually use for electricity is imported. At affected din siya ng nagaganap na energy crisis. In fact, we have kumbaga monitored already a 16% increase doon sa prices based on international market itong mga inaangkat at sinusunog ng mga coal plants, and that was based on kumbaga preliminary na implication. In fact, yung sa Meralco franchise area sa production ng kuryente, generation ng kuryente, ang forecast namin, syempre hindi ito magre-reflect within the billing period right now, but really in the next billing period, amounting to around 5 pesos per kilowatt hour ang increase. Pagdating sa transmission, na nga, ini-stabilize siya ng renewable energy kasi mas madaming renewable energy na ancillary. At doon sa punto na walang magagawa, in fact, mayroon talagang dapat magawa ang pamahalaan natin at this point. So, may measure na sila doon sa pagsuspend halimbawa ng West M. Ibig sabihin yung spot market, because really that measure will address yung gaming na sinasabi pag may problema sa supply ng kuryente because of yung pagtaas ng presyo ng ng inaangkat na mga fuels, no, at talagang diretso yung impacts niyan. Pero doon sa measures ng increases, kailangan meron po kaming sinubmit sa ERC, sa Department of Energy, including sa both houses ng Congress on the measures that really has to be put forward and put in place. Ang isa dyan ay kailangan talagang kumbaga may proposition po kami na dapat equitable yung usapin ng paano pinapasa ng electric consumers. Kasi hindi kailangan nating protektahan mismo yung mga electric consumers na pinaka-vulnerable. For example, ilan yung drivers na nagko-konsumo ng 100 to 200 kilowatt, no? Sila na nga yung tinatamaan direkta nung epekto ng pagtaas ng diesel at ng gas, right? At pagdating nila sa bahay nila, dadalihin pa sila ng increase uli ng presyo ng kuryente. So, there are measures really that can be targeted na, for example, isuspend yung ilang taxes pagdating sa kuryente, no? Dito sa Metro Manila. But at the same time, sa mga tinatawag na small island na mga grid tulad ng Mindoro, Palawan, dyan mas matindi ang epekto kasi diretso yan sa diesel and bunker fuels. At yung increases sa diesel, grabe. So parang may estimate kami na around 25 pesos yung possible na i-carry na burden. And these small islands are subsidized by the national government. In fact, subsidized natin ng mga electric consumers. So double whammy actually yung tama sa mga electric consumers dito sa Metro Manila kasi sinasubsidize din natin yung increase sa diesel na consumption. So ang isang approach talaga dyan is one ay equitable na pagpasa ng tinatawag na fuel cost, no? Na dapat may caution lalo na sa 100 to 200 kilowatt hour ng mga pamilya.
Okay.
Hindi kasi sapat yung ayuda lang, kasi yung ayuda very limited talaga. So kaya kami nananawagan din kung meron mang intervention, isang pinaka best, notwithstanding yung excise tax and VAT sa diesel, ay yung directed sa kuryente and directed sa suspension ng pass-on pagdating sa 100 to 200.
Alright.
Marami pa pong measures na pwede nating pag-isipan hinggil dyan.
Opo. At we will continue that discussion. Hopefully, next time po, ma-invite po namin kayo ulit. With the uncertainty of the conflict in Middle East, marami po tayong mapag-uusapan dito na po pwede natin magawa. But for the meantime, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. Power for People Coalition Convener, Jerry Arances. Good morning.
Maraming salamat po. Good morning.
And that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
I'm Angelo Castro III. Kapatid, we are one you.
All sides, all the time.